So the reason why we did the Olympic top 5 is because, as I mentioned in the intro, the U.S. men's soccer team did not qualify for the Tokyo. It's in Tokyo, right? Yeah, for the Tokyo Olympics, which was moved a year because of COVID. This is now the third straight tournament that the U.S. men's team has failed to qualify for after not qualifying for Rio 2016 and not qualifying for the 2018 World Cup. As I was alluding to in the top 5, the Olympic men's soccer is different from other sports in that you have to, it's basically a U23 team, which means under 23, but if you're 23 at the time of the tournament, you can play. But then also you're allowed to bring 3 senior players. So 3 players that are over the age of that limit, whatever. Really they could have, they had options. And they end up losing to Honduras 2-1 in the semifinal of the tournament. And the way the tournament works, like I think you have 8 teams competing in it, and the top 2 finishes, the 2 finalists in that tournament get to go to the Olympics. So the 2 finalists from Honduras and Mexico, so they both go in. Mexico ended up winning the tournament yesterday. US Misa again, and there's been a lot of talk of like what went wrong, where's our development failing. One big thing that was talked about is the fact that European teams didn't release their American players like Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, I think Serginho Dest. But then also the other thing I think about is Pulisic and Dest were actually playing with the senior team. So they wouldn't have released them to this team anyway, but I'm pretty sure those 2 would have played in the Olympics. So it's kind of like a weird thing for me. I'm like, well, why would those guys play in the friendly against Northern Ireland, but not play in a tournament that actually matters, where you gotta win this or you gotta finish as top 2 to make it to the Olympics? That didn't make sense to me.
So do you think Europe sandbagged the US a little bit in that regard, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
I feel like if the US had said that, hey, we want our players to compete in this tournament, the club teams in Europe, because Weston McKennie plays for Juventus, Christian Pulisic plays for Chelsea in England. I can't remember all the others off the top of my head. But the club teams would have let them go. They'd have been like, yeah, that's fine. We have subs. In fact, Christian Pulisic doesn't even play that much for Chelsea anymore. Like, they're using other players. So they would have let them go. I don't know. I think this is a screw up. I think they probably thought, oh, we can beat these other teams like Honduras and all that stuff. And then they ended up screwing up. I don't know. It's a massive oversight on their part. But then you had a question. You want to ask it, or you want to just
no, I'll ask it. So my first question was, what MLS player or what player do you think would have helped? So you already answered that. Basically, you're saying
no. So the one I answered, those weren't MLS players. So Pulisic is
okay. So that is my question then.
Yeah.
MLS player or just any player. Do you think that that should have been called up, that wasn't called up, or couldn't be called up? Do you think that would have made a difference?
There's a bunch of there are a bunch of players that are Euro based that are under the age of 23 that would have made a difference. But I'm gonna put aside the Euro based players and focus on MLS. I think and I was telling you in pre-production, I didn't focus on MLS that much last year because Atlanta United was struggling, but also because of COVID. COVID kind of derailed the season and just made it really hard to follow. But from my knowledge, just even within Atlanta United, we've got some quality players that could have been a big help. I don't know if George Bello played for the U23 team. If he didn't, he should have. What's his name? Miles Robinson. If he didn't, he should have as well. But what I heard is they really just used college players, which kind of reeks of hubris. Like, oh, we can win this without bringing our best. And, people are like, well, Mexico also didn't bring their European players. Yeah, but It's Mexico. Like I feel like soccer development in this country has been lagging for so long, and at this point, there's really no reason why it should be lagging. It's the richest country in the world. There's no thing like, oh well, we put all our focus on basketball or NFL, so we can focus
Or
on this.
baseball.
Yeah, like you got the money, you can focus on it. You just choose not to.
Yeah,
It's
it's interest too. I think it's just.
no.
I personally don't think.
I'm
You don't
sorry.
think that's the case?
I
You
don't
think there
think
is
that's
the
the case
interest there
anymore.
now?
Yeah, I think comparing 2021 to maybe 2001, the interest is
Oh no, that definitely is the truth. But
yeah.
is it enough? You know what I mean? Like,
so let me qualify this. There's interest from players, from kids who want to play. Is there interest from, I guess, the schools, the colleges? Is there interest from, whoever would be financing this? Because it's easy to finance MLS because you're going to get TV money, but do you want to really finance,
I think that's what it is. It has to be
parts?
Once college soccer becomes
Watchable.
Watchable. No, not even watchable. It's watchable. Soccer's watchable if you like soccer. Although some people do say it's just jogging with a ball in between. But people that was my opinion before I became a fan. But it's just it is there going to be that interest? And once that interest hits, right, then will they start making money? And I think that's always going to be the problem. Is it has to be about, because the NBA is watched, right? People love the NBA, so the dream teams are always going to be available, right? Yeah. If American football were to be able to be an Olympic sport, which it can never be, right, just because of how hard hitting of a game it is, then it'd be great. It's kind of like rugby, right? Mm-hmm. Rugby has such a high interest in so many places, but if you play it here, like rugby is the biggest thing because I just recently watched what was the movie with Matt Damon and where
Invictus,
where Nelson Mandela used rugby as a way to unite the country, right? Yeah. That just shows how big rugby can be there in different, but here it's not, right? Here there's no funding for rugby. Like
I mean, here you have like rec leagues and like you have people that get it together, but no major funding.
And for the longest time, soccer was a rec league game here in the US. Now MLS has built it up and it's starting to get, I think it'll get better. Unfortunately, I think what'll probably have to happen is we know for sure in 2028 the US will qualify. Because they're going to be in Los Angeles.
They're hosting. Yeah. They're hosting. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say my other question, because somebody brought it up about how we need to pay attention to women's soccer and how it seems that women's soccer takes it seriously. And that's why they dominate, right? Because they are, if I'm not mistaken, just from hearing it, like for me to talk about it, Women's USA has been one of the most dominating soccer teams, right?
Yeah, the most.
Oh, it has been the most. Okay. Yeah. So my question is, do we need to look at the women's soccer team and be like, what are they doing that's different than the men's soccer? Or is it just because there's just a bigger talent around the world when it comes to, because that's one of the things that people do talk about is women's soccer is barely getting big around the world too, because there are some countries that were huge into soccer or football, right? But they didn't allow women to play, i.e. the Saudi Arabias, the places like that. But now they're slow. So is it a talent thing, or is it an actual giving a damn about it and actually taking it seriously?
So it's a bit of both, and I know that's not an answer people want to hear, but it's a bit of both. Had you asked me this question 10 years ago, I'd have said, well, it's clearly because US is well ahead with Title IX and women in sports and all that stuff, well ahead of other countries. You do have some European countries like spurts here and there that were already there, like Germany, Norway is one, and then you've got China, who's like really good in women's soccer in the 90s, but in general is like nothing. Now, if you ask me that question, I think women's soccer it's become a lot more equitable than it was even just 10 years ago. The US women's team is still the best, and now it's no longer, oh, we're the best because we got a head start. We're the best because we give a damn, because we're still trying to push it. There was a time in my life where I had the pipe dream that I could maybe go pro, or at least go to college and play soccer. And one thing I found was that there were very few men's college teams that were playing D1 soccer in NCAA. UGA had a women's team, but no men's team, and that was the case for a lot of schools in the Southeast region. Women's team, no men's team. I think Duke has a men's team, and that shows you right there that they knew that, okay, look, we can create this pipeline of college to the U.S. women's national team, and like it's an important thing to do, but that there was such a lack of importance from the men's side that you have a major school like UGA that just even feel like we need to have a program for men's soccer, right? So lack of effort is a big thing that occurred there. There's a lot they could learn from the women, even though the women aren't making as much money. But
that's just because that's just in the background is the whole fact that the U.S. has a big wage gap between women and men, because it's been proven when it comes to soccer, women's soccer is more profitable than men's soccer because more people have been watching it.
Yeah, exactly. I think the ratings for women's soccer are on par, if not higher, than men's soccer in the US, which is a crazy thing. Like, I can't go to another country and think that would be the case, right? But here, women's soccer rates higher. So they definitely do deserve more money. There's a lot to be learned from how they put emphasis on victory. Right? Yeah. I feel like the men's team is content with like, hey, we showed up, or we were on the we were in the tournament. There's no drive there. I really hope they make it to the 2022 World Cup, because there's a talent pool of American players that could actually deliver victory if the US federation, I forget what it's called, if they actually gave a damn. I think there's a lot of American players that can deliver victory for the US.
But I will say this. I think when it comes to soccer, the US takes the World Cup a lot more serious than they do take soccer Olympics. Just because the World Cup is only soccer, so they're like, we have to have a US representation there, right? We need to have that. So they put a little more emphasis. Whereas in the Olympics, you're gonna have a U.S. representation somewhere, right?
Well, I would say the U.S. as a whole, as in like the country, yes, probably takes World Cup more seriously. But I wouldn't think that the Soccer Federation thinks of the Olympics as let's not. Well, I mean, it's still a chance at victory. It's still a chance at medals. Honestly, like the Mexican players, when they won yesterday against Honduras, they were legit like ecstatic. Like, you think they just won the World Cup, because it matters. It's a chance to represent your country.
I think it's also the sport. It's just the sport itself. Like, soccer is the sport of the world.
Yeah.
Except for America, where it's football. Isn't that the most American thing, that not only did we not make football our number one sport, but we took the name football and made it a different sport. Yeah. Anyways, hey man, great discussion on this. So moving on to another sport. Hopefully, like you said, we do make it to the look 2028. We're definitely in there.
Oh yes, for those who don't follow soccer, what Zeus is talking about is the fact that it's jointly, no, not 2028, 2026.
That's the World Cup. I'm talking about the Olympics.
Oh, the Olympics in LA. Okay, 2026 World Cup. We're also definitely in there.
There you go. So we're definitely in there. You know?
Because
even 2 years earlier.
It's a North American World Cup. It's being hosted by 3 countries jointly: Canada, US, and Mexico.
It's the NAFTA Olympics.
The NAFTA Olympics. There you go.
Very good. All right, cool.